Hello, good morning and a warm welcome. Sage here for Kalkine TV, reporting to you live from Sydney, and you're watching the Global Markets Roundup. Let's dive into some of the key highlights and happenings from yesterday. Let's begin with the US market. And the global equities jumped higher on Tuesday on the back of optimism about consumer resilience in the face of rising inflation, which also helped drive the dollar to a 16-month high. All three major Wall Street indices moved higher in the midday trading as Walmart upped its holiday forecast and the Commerce Department reported October retail sales activity that beat economists' expectations. And the benchmark US indices closed higher on Tuesday, 16th November, after the latest economic data showed retail sales rose to their highest levels since March this year. The S&P 500 rose 0.39% and the Dow Jones was up 0.15%. The Nasdaq Composite rose 0.76% and the small cap Russell 2000 rose 0.10%. On Tuesday, the Commerce Department said retail sales increased 1.7% in October, the highest since March. And the retail sales increase could be partly due to the higher prices of consumer items, as reflected in the monthly consumer inflation that rose 0.9% in October. The report coincided with the Fed's move to start tapering its bond buying program, which is expected to conclude by mid next year. However, inflation concerns continue to weigh on investors' minds. Economists expect more volatility in the US market due to rising COVID cases in Europe and China's property market stress and growing inflation. And meanwhile, the crypto market declined about 5.84% on Tuesday after President Biden signed a $1 trillion infrastructure bill into law a day earlier. The law contains cryptocurrency tax reporting rules. And the consumer discretionary technology and healthcare stocks were among the top movers on the S&P 500 index. Real estate, consumer staples and communication services stocks were the bottom movers. 7 of the 11 segments in the index remained in the green, and now it's time for a small break, but please stay tuned as I'll be back with the UK and Australian market updates. Property by Kalkine. Looking for a dream home? Well, that may sound easy, but it isn't. And from looking for a property that is the right fit for you in terms of cost and other factors, to zeroing down on the right mortgage plan, there are various aspects to consider. And for the latest lowdown in the property market, tune in on Kalkine TV with me, Sage. I will give the latest updates on the property market as well as real estate stocks to help you make the right decision. Keep watching Property with Kalkine. Welcome back. I'm Sage and you're watching the Global Markets Roundup show. And some European show stocks index extending their record rallies on Tuesday, boosted by shares of the Dutch technology investor Prosus and French luxury group Kering, and lifted by optimism over easing in the US-China tensions. And the pan-European stock 600 closed 0.2% higher, while Germany's DAX, France's CAC 40 and the Eurozone shares all rose to new peaks. And the UK shares went deeper into the negative territory in the terminal trades on Tuesday, with the domestic benchmark FTSE 100 falling close to 0.40%. The index managed to briefly oscillate in the positive region after the rate of unemployment eased to 4.3% and the employment rate appreciating to 75.4% in the 3 months to September, and effectively signalling comprehensive recovery in the employment landscape. Shares of Vodafone Group emerged as the table toppers on Tuesday, with the stock rallying more than 5% after the Berkshire-headquartered Telecommunications Corporation reported a rise of 5% in the group revenue to €22.5 billion in the first half of financial year 22, as compared to a revenue of €21.4 billion in the comparable period of previous fiscal. The company has announced an interim dividend of 4.5 euro cents. And shares of AstraZeneca collapsed again as the stock plunged more than 5% intraday, taking the three-day fall to over 10%. A value erosion of more than 10% in the shares of the market capitalisation leader has severely dragged the headline index. A quick reversal in AstraZeneca shares can lead the index to newer highs in the near term, with the average surpassing the psychological level of 7,500. And the FTSE 100 shed 0.30%, while the mid-cap average declined 0.35%. Japanese shares ended slightly higher on Tuesday, erasing most of the early gains due to lack of any major market-moving cues. But gains in companies with upbeat outlooks underpinned the overall sentiment. And the Nikkei share average gained 0.11% after having gained as much as 0.6%. The broader topics also edged up 0.11%. Shanghai stocks closed lower on Tuesday, with defence stocks leading the losses as markets reversed morning sessions gains from upbeat positive signs and talks between the US President Biden and the Chinese leader Xi Jinping. And the blue chip CSI 300 index was unchanged, while the Shanghai Composite Index lost 0.3%. And the South Korean shares ended flat on Tuesday as optimism over the US-China talks was partially offset by investor caution ahead of the US retail sales data that could give signs of any impact inflation has had on consumer spending. And the benchmark Kospi closed flat, erasing the early gains of 0.41%, while the index ended 1.04% higher on Monday. And the ASX 200 fell 0.67% on Tuesday. Several companies, including A2 Milk Company, Afterpay and Seek, are scheduled to hold their annual general meetings on Wednesday. And now let's move on to the commodities market, beginning with the bond yields. And the US Treasury yields rose in a choppy trading after the data showed that the US retail sales increased more than expected in October, and before the US Treasury sale of 20-year bonds on Wednesday. The benchmark 10-year note yields gained a basis point on the day to 1.63% and were up from 1.61% before the retail sales data was released. The oil price trade mixed, and the oil price has settled mixed as prospects of tight inventories globally were offset by forecasts of a production increase in the next few months. And the Brent crude rose 0.5% to reach US $82.43 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude declined 0.2% to reach US $80.76 a barrel. The gold prices fall. And the gold prices fell from a more than 5-month peak as the dollar was strengthened by an upbeat US retail sales data for October. Spot gold fell 0.6%, while the benchmark iron ore futures fell 1.1%. And thanks for your company on that report. But that's all for now, and keep watching Kalkine TV for more of the market updates. Sage signing off.